Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. Today, Duane Toews is at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka, where Alan Anderson explains some issues in the wind energy industry, and Tracy Streeter talks about water's impact on energy costs. Then enjoy this week's Kansas Soybean Report. Next, Mark Idle describes subsurface drip irrigation. Sherry Seifert discusses biodiesel, and we end with Jesse McCurry and sorghum, an energy-efficient crop with many uses. It's all coming up on Farm Factor. Stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. This segment is brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
Good morning and welcome back to Farm Factor at the Kansas Energy Conference. Let's join Duane as he and Alan discuss the wind energy industry in Kansas.
Duane Toews joining you with Ag AM in Kansas while at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka. A chance to catch up with Alan Anderson with Polsinelli out of the Kansas City office. And Alan, your group obviously deals as a law firm with a lot of different issues around energy. Speaking specifically about wind projects, you've been involved with a number of those here in Kansas. Give us a little background on some of the issues from your perspective that not only landowners but the industry deals with in the wind industry.
Right. Yeah, we've had the fortune of working with most of the projects in Kansas, and what we've found is, fortunately, the wind industry is very collaborative with either the landowners, with the local communities, with, of course, the state governments and everyone along the process. For the actual landowners, usually the farmers, the ranchers, it's been just a fantastic boon to both their ability to continue family farms. There's a new source of revenue. There's an infusion of usually tax or similar dollars that go into the community that help with schools, with all the different things. So for where these projects have taken place, it's been just really a good collaborative effort with the communities, but also with the local landowners themselves. And they do a great job on communicating on those.
We think about some of the issues that come up. Primarily, the only one is an aesthetic issue, and that has been a problem in some areas, unfortunate as it may be.
Yeah, and there's great sensitivity. There's certain areas, of course, where projects don't happen in Kansas and in the region, for example, where the aesthetic or the view shed is particularly important, or the natural resource. It could be grasses, it could be other things. And the industry does take great pains to work with, the states and Fish and Wildlife and all places to avoid those. Ultimately, there's going to be something in the air that people will see. There's a turbine, and of course that's up to individual tastes and whether people view that as actually something that they kind of appreciate, partially because what it does. Like you might see a grain silo, and some people don't like that. Some people view it as that's what our community is. This is another kind of revenue stream, and it's another part of farming. In this case, it's wind farming. So generally, people have actually ended up being very pleased with it, and those kind of things. There's always going to be some that don't.
Obviously, we've had some tremendous growth in a very short period of time, I guess, in my perspective, of wind farms, if you will call them that, in Kansas. Where are we at currently? Are we at a kind of a steady pace of growth or a slowdown?
Well, it's like we're right now in a busy time. We've got a lot of projects that are coming on, and partially one of the great things is the cost of wind power has become very, in fact, it's better than any other source of energy we have from a cost perspective. So we are now doing projects in Kansas, and particularly in Kansas, but around the country, based on purely they are the most economic source of energy. So we've had an uptick on activity that will continue for some period of time, which is great for tax dollars, the dollars revenue flow into the state, and then ultimately it's a good thing for ratepayers and things, because this is you get 20-year power purchase agreements that we all get a benefit from, where that price will be static through the entire process, or with some very, very low increase that gives us some protection against what are likely to be, over that 20-year period, a higher rate of utility pricing going up.
Our thanks to Alan Anderson joining us here at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka for Ag AM in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you in studio.
Thanks, Duane. Folks, stay with us as Duane catches up next with Tracy Streeter, Director of the Kansas Water Office.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamandkansas.com. This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Farm Factor. Let's join Duane and Tracy as they talk about the impact that the water found in Kansas reservoirs has on energy costs.
Duane Toews continuing with updates from the Topeka at the Kansas Energy Conference. Tracy Streeter with the Kansas Water Office Director joins us here on the program. And Tracy, we think about water in Kansas. A lot of folks don't think about it on an energy front, but it does have an impact as far as energy costs, energy savings, and efficiency really was kind of one of the topics here at the conference. You shared some information that from your perspective, the governor's perspective, about the importance of water here in Kansas.
Well, obviously, with us being an agricultural state and being kind of in a semi-arid region in the west and to a pretty good precipitous region in the east, we obviously have a diverse set of issues to deal with conserving the Ogallala aquifer and extending the life of that, and then, of course, keeping sediment out of our reservoirs. And as I mentioned, 2/3 or about 60% of our energy production relies on our reservoirs, either directly or indirectly. So water does matter greatly when we're producing power for our state and our neighbors, to make sure that we have the water to back up those power plants and meet their needs. And so agriculture's contribution to having good watershed management and keeping sediment out of those lakes is vital to energy production in Kansas. We heard some great stories at the conference this morning about an irrigator out west where he has reduced his energy cost by adopting subsurface drip irrigation. I think there's opportunities to look at that in terms of reducing input cost as we try to conserve water. Some think that, and there's something to that we're going to see less economic activity if we reduce water. Well, if we can reduce our input costs but yet maintain yields, then I think we've got some opportunity to move forward on both.
We think about the state. You referenced that there are different issues in different parts of the state. We're pretty diverse from east to west.
We certainly are, and when you get into a drought like we were a couple of years ago, we were all kind of in the same boat. We were dealing with diminished water resources in the west and east when we had the whole state covered in some stage of drought. So it kind of united us around the water issue in Kansas in the last couple of years. And so I think that we need to be mindful of that we were in a statewide drought not long ago, and we're teetering on getting back into drought in other parts of the state right now. So I think drought is something that kind of unites us, and even though we have such diverse conditions from west to east normally, the drought really is something that we all have in common statewide.
Our thanks to Tracy Streeter, Director of the Kansas Water Office, joining us at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka. Jamie, we'll send it back to you in studio.
Thanks, Duane. Don't go away, folks. Next up is this week's Kansas Soybean Report.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Report.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Dr. Kevin Donnelly, professor of agronomy at Kansas State University, is joining us. Dr. Donnelly, you had the privilege of being the judge for the State Fair soybean plant judging competition down in Hutchinson in September.
Yeah, certainly did. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. We had a good show this year. Probably had about a dozen entries in two different classes. The contest is set up by maturity groups, so we had about 12 or 13 entries each in the Group 3 and 4 maturity classes.
So when you're judging soybean plants, what are some of the things you look for?
We do have some guidelines listed in the State Fair booklet for this particular contest, and so one thing that first I guess start off with, there are actually 4 maturity groups listed, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. Typically in Kansas, we mostly are growing 3s and 4s, so that's primarily where our entries were. So particularly in the early maturity, the Group 3, I would be focusing a little more on maturity, but the main things we're looking for is sort of uniform height of plants. You have to select 5 plants, including the roots, so they need to be dug up, carefully wash the roots off. We do indicate nodules to be important there. I understand that sometimes those can get sloughed off, but it is important that they understand they're supposed to be shown with the roots intact. So I like to see as tall a plant as possible, but we're also looking for basically for pod set. Certainly pods per plant, getting a high number of pods is the key. Not necessarily always looking for the biggest plant. So you can go out the end of the row somewhere or a gap in the field and find a big bushy tree-like plant, which soybeans will do if they have extra room. So I'd like to see more uniform plants that are similar in size and branching pattern. And then having good pod set, that's the main thing, all the way from top to bottom, and seeing a uniform pod size and fill. Maturity, again, on the Group 3s, I like to see them being a little more mature. Then we look for, since they are shown with the leaves on, freedom from disease and insect damage and so forth would be important as well. Lastly would be, the bundle itself. They are kind of onerous to bundle together. They don't make a nice, neat bundle, maybe like some of our other displays of small grain in the head or something like that. So they're a little onerous to bundle together, but a nice tie around them above the root system.
Dr. Donnelly, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, appreciate it, and hope everybody consider submitting an entry next year.
Dr. Kevin Donnelly, who is the professor of agronomy at Kansas State University, is our guest on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Report. Stay tuned for Duane's visit with Mark Idle, a producer from Western Kansas.
Biodiesel made from sustainable resources is diversifying our fuel supply. This year, biodiesel will displace over 1 billion gallons of fossil fuel nationwide. It's making our economy stronger and our communities healthier. It's working here and across America. Get biodiesel going in your community. Visit americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
This segment brought to you by Heinen Brothers Ag, farmers helping farmers by offering quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia. Call today to protect your crop yield.
Welcome back. Let's catch up with Duane and Mark as they discuss the advantages of subsurface drip irrigation.
Duane Toews rejoining you here on Ag AM in Kansas. While at the Kansas Energy Conference, had a chance to catch up with one of the speakers at the event, Mark Idle, a producer from western Kansas in the Dighton area. And we think about some of the opportunities to save and conserve water. That's a big issue in the Dighton area, obviously. as we think about being really almost prescription farming with subsurface drip irrigation?
You know, it's puts the water and the fertilizer right where the plant needs it, so you don't have the water run off as much. I found I'm using about 30% less water to produce the same amount of crop, and then if you combine that with your no-till practices, it soaks that up and holds it there. And then the SDI, I can reduce my water usage because I'm using more of the water that Mother Nature gives me.
One of the things you talked about was just the evaporation loss, primarily with flood irrigation, but even yet still a problem with even some of our better pivot irrigation systems. That makes a difference as well.
Yes, you know, with the sun and the wind out there, you get a 100-degree day and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour. If you're putting water on top of the ground, you're getting a lot of evaporation, and that goes up into the air, and they get it in Missouri and Illinois or wherever, but we don't get it there. And so it makes a tremendous difference. With the SDI or subsurface drip, all that water is underneath the ground. We get absolutely no evaporation whatsoever. The newer sprinklers are they're a lot more efficient because they're putting that water closer to the ground, and some of the new sprinkler systems are a combination of the drip tape, where they drag the drip tape behind the sprinkler. It's actually right down on the ground, and that they haven't perfected that yet, but they're working on that. Some of the companies that I have worked with on my subsurface drip are actually heavy into that, and they've got. I just spoke to a gentleman yesterday, and they're going into a 3-year research program of that now down at the Garden City Extension service down there.
Our thanks to Mark Idle from Dighton, Kansas, joining us at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka. Jamie, we'll send it back to you in studio.
Thanks. Duane's next guest is Sherry Seifert, a consultant for the Kansas Soybean Commission.
I'm a patient of Kansas Regenerative Medicine in Manhattan. I had stem cell therapy in my hips and my left knee. My wife and I both are patients. We went down there the same day in November. Since then, my hips are feeling a lot better. I can work now most of the day if I want to. And before, if I worked in the morning, I was done in the afternoon, or if I worked in the afternoon, I was sure enough done for the rest of the day.
Tallgrass Commodities offers producers bulk commodities at a reasonable price with reliable service throughout the whole Midwest. To find out more about Tallgrass Commodities, visit tallgrass.us or call 785-494-8484.
I will take action against herbicide-resistant weeds. I will know my weeds, and I will stop them before they go to seed. I will do whatever it takes to give my crops the upper hand. And I will use multiple herbicide sites of action because every action counts. I will take action, this time for all time.
This segment brought to you by Heinen Brothers Ag, farmers helping farmers by offering quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia. Call today to protect your crop yield.
Welcome back to Farm Factor. Let's meet up with Duane and Sherry as they discuss biodiesel and how the soybean industry is doing more with less.
Duane Toews joining you once again on Ag AM in Kansas while at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka. A chance to catch up with Sherry Seifert, consultant working with the Kansas Soybean Commission and Kansas Soybean Association. And Sherry, you had a booth here at the Kansas Energy Conference promoting biodiesel and some of the things that soybeans and the soybean industry can provide on an energy front. Give us kind of an update on the message that you tried to convey to those who were in attendance.
Well, most of them I tried to let them know that how important the biodiesel is because it's a good blend to put into your diesel that keep your engines clean, and it's an economical thing to do.
We think about the soybean industry and a lot of research and development that's gone on as far as trying to come up with alternative uses for. That helps in the bottom line for growers in terms of what they get back in those dollars per bushel.
That's very true, and the soybean is a product that the farmers grow that is very widely used in many, many, many products.
Sherry, we listened to some of the speakers and hearing about efficiency, energy, trying to do less with more, and conserving. Our soy growers are doing more with less as well.
Very true, very true. Our soybean checkoff is put over $100 million into research to do all the different things that can be done with it. And now one of the things they're working with is the railroads to see about the biodiesel with their operating their trains. And we found out that by doing that, we can't go straight to the railroad. You got to go to the manufacturer of the engines because they maintain them and keep all that going. So we're working now to sell the biodiesel products to them to operate those.
Our thanks to Sherry Seifert, with the consultant for the Kansas Soybean Commission, joining us at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka. Jamie, we'll send it back to you as we continue with Ag AM in Kansas. I'm Duane Toews.
Thanks, Duane. Next up is Jesse McCurry with the United Sorghum Checkoff Program.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Heinen Brothers, a fourth-generation Northeast Kansas farm family, knows how tough farming can be. Farmers helping farmers. Heinen Brothers Ag, selling and servicing crop protection products, fertilizer, anhydrous ammonia, cover crops, quality aerial and ground application. Call today to learn about our extended term financing program. 800-760-4964. HeinenBrothersAg.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
We're back with Duane and Jesse, who talk about challenges in the ethanol market.
Duane Toews joining you at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka, Kansas, and a chance to catch up with Jesse McCurry with the United Sorghum Checkoff Program. And Jesse, you were on one of the panels that was talking about agriculture issues and primarily water, but ethanol is certainly a bigger piece of the puzzle right now for most sorghum growers.
The ethanol market continues to be a major piece of our demand puzzle in Kansas, and one of the areas that we can grow is to have some more higher blended fuels in Kansas and try to get more into E15. So we're excited about some of the prospects. There's some challenges in the ethanol market, but at least it's there for sorghum growers, and it continues to be very important.
Obviously, the 500-pound gorilla would have been China and what it did for the sorghum market, sorghum growers. Great opportunity, but we know China is typically not the most reliable market long-term at times, and having a diverse product in a diverse market is pretty important.
At least having a foothold for sorghum in China is a step, and you're right. That's why we need to continue to push market demand across the country, whether that's sorghum into pet food or sorghum into human food or ethanol or potential green chemical, plastic-type uses. We have to have a portfolio that's able to step in and out of the market to try to keep prices up as close as we can to corn, and in some cases over corn.
As far as the energy conference, some of the points that you made for those in attendance in that session, a water-conserving crop, but an energy-efficient crop when we think about sorghum long-term.
Yeah, we continue to be impressed by the ingenuity of our farmers, whether that's new irrigation systems or rotations or no-till, and how and why they use energy in different crop decisions. It's a complex picture on how and when a producer decides to plant a crop, but they're doing it better and better with less, and they're going to have to given the water situation. And I feel like the message of sorghum being a more crop that's advancing in technology and has some better things going for it at least makes that part of their decision-making process.
Our thanks to Jesse McCurry with the United Sorghum Checkoff Program joining us at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka.
Thanks again for joining us at the Kansas Energy Conference in Topeka. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor. We're here every Tuesday on Ag AM in Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agaminkansas.com.